here today with our Tuesday Tidbit, Building Trust in Teams. Now, I'm not sure about most of you, but I know for myself, I'm missing my work team. I work from home a lot, and so that's not new for me. What is new is having other coworkers, in air quotes here, in the building with me. And so some of my junior employees, I hope I've encouraged them to be quiet for the next half hour, but apologies in advance if there's some excitement about winning a Splatoon game or something like that. Our new normal, how about it? How's everybody feeling? It's interesting. I posted something on my LinkedIn page about change and how some of those stages of change that we go through or in an organization or any change really mimic grief. And that's not what we're talking about today, but I do want to acknowledge it that, you know, the way that we're working right now and living is different, right? It's different than it was a few weeks ago. So let's just give ourselves a little bit of a break, relax the shoulders down and back. Can you tell I'm also a yoga instructor? Anyway, today, building trust in teams. This is one of my absolute favorite topics, right along there with communication, because the two are so incredibly tied together. And without them, we can't have the other, right? So if I'm trying to build trust, I want to be able to have effective communication, and I can't build effective communication if I don't have trust, and if you know what I mean? They work hand in hand. We talk about trust as a wave, and Stephen Covey, he has a great book. Stephen Covey, the baby, Junior, not the dad. Stephen M.R. Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and in it he talks about 5 waves of trust, and you've guessed it, the first wave is you. I hope you can see this awesome picture of my crazy uncle. I talk about him from time to time on these webinars. This is him at age of 80, skiing down a hill in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and they have this kind of like what Spring Hill does with a slush cup. This is a very similar thing where they have this open water, and yes, he made it all the way across. Yes, he does ski in his jeans, so just goes to show you don't need all the fancy equipment. But anyway, the reason I wanted to show this to you is for a few things. One, he trusts himself because he's confident and he has the skills. He's been skiing for like a million years. Secondly, a pond, the waves, the ripples. That's trust. Trust is like the ripples in a pond. It begins with you in the middle and then spreads out to the world at large. In our Building Trust in Teams 3-hour workshop, we talk about the other waves as well, which would be organization, societal, there's a whole bunch. Feel free to Google it. There's a great video called The Speed of Trust. Go to the one, when you go to YouTube, go to the one that has a hot dog cart vendor on the front page, or whatever you want to call it, the first clip. And that's what I love to share in that Building Trust one. So if you can find it, Speed of Trust, Stephen M.R. Covey, and then the hot dog cart guy. And that's your homework. Anyway, talks about all those different waves, but definitely knowing that we are at the center. So that means a couple of questions for you. Are you trustworthy? Do people trust you? Do you trust yourself? And then how do you know all of this? Okay, we'll get into that in just a sec. The truth is, as leaders, we know when we have trust, at least I hope we do, we know when we have trust with our team. Maybe there are certain people that we trust more than others, but the bigger question is, do they trust you? And I think we'll know this by the answer by these 2 comments here. Team members go above and beyond the call of duty for leaders they trust. And I know that that's true for me. There are people in my life and have been different leaders that I've had that I will go above and beyond. And then there are those leaders that I've had in my past, thank goodness. The truth is we're only going to do what's required, right? Maybe we're checking the boxes with those leaders. And the same is true of your team members. If they don't trust you, they're only going to do what's required. And it might not even just be you, the leader. It could be that they don't trust their team members. And so that's a whole other thing. If you think back to last week, those of you that had joined us, we talked about conflict. And trust is one of those symptoms, right? If we don't have trust, or there's a lack of trust in our organization, that is a symptom of a deeper conflict. So there's something else going on. When people are only doing what is required, they're not engaging socially, or they're just doing their job, right? They're not going above and beyond. We've got trust issues. So keep that in mind. I don't know, I'm a big believer of keeping eyes, ears, and heart open. And there's, we've been given in our bodies, it's kind of interesting, the ratio, right? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 heart, but also only 1 mouth. Thank goodness, right? Now, if we look at an organization and their trust, it's obvious to see how valuable it is to have a high level of trust throughout an organization. Some of you may have worked in places before, or maybe you're currently working in places that there are trust issues, and that's a fact, okay? I'm not here to sugarcoat everything as much as I live in the land of rainbows and lollipops. The truth is that not all of us work in high trust situations, and we can see that trust is a part of an organization's social capital, and it can be a very valuable and intangible asset. And in the workplaces that I get to work in, I'm lucky I get to work in a lot of different workplaces. I'm so thankful for the trust relationships that I have, that people trust me to do my job. And that's the greatest. I have worked in places where I was micromanaged, and personally it doesn't work out well, right? I feel that's a lack of trust. And so in those times, the truth is, going back to that other slide, I only did what was required. Rarely was I going above and beyond because I didn't feel that trust. Did I know that that's what it was at the time? I don't think so. But now looking back, I can clearly see that was a low trust environment. Now, I asked the question earlier, do you trust your leader? And are you a trustworthy leader? And what really separates the great leaders from good ones? Personally, a few things that I can see and have seen throughout my time as a workplace trainer, which is coming up on many years now. Communication, number 1. Rolled into communication, because most of you have heard me preach that communication is everything, which it is. So under that umbrella, emotional intelligence, right? Knowledge, competency, of course, but it's the big one again, trust. So what makes an individual credible with customers, suppliers, distributors, investors, and other stakeholders? The other word that's coming to mind here for me is consistency. Being consistent, a consistent message, that's how we know we can trust. When we talk about customer service training, one of the biggest things that comes up again and again and again is consistency, delivering a consistent message in line with your policies, procedures, values. This is how we build credibility, and this is how we become trustworthy people. A high trust leader is an individual who has unquestionable, strong personal credibility. I'm going to pause let's just pause at this comma here. Emotional intelligence. Okay, that's another one that comes to mind. I know I said it on the last slide, but it's true. If we know who we are, we know our own values, we live in alignment with our values, right? Then we will be able to build that personal credibility. I have worked for people where I went in that day not knowing which version of that person I was going to get. And you know what? Sometimes it was scary. I'm not even just kidding. Now, if we're able to have unquestionable, strong personal credibility, we will have the ability to create and grow trust with others interpersonally, not just our team members, but stakeholders, our customers, our upper management, anybody, right? Everybody. And then we extend that trust out. So again, think about that video that I just told you guys. Write it down. Stephen M.R. Covey, Speed of Trust, Hot Dog Cart Guy. The ripple starts with you, and then that we're able to extend that trust out organizationally. It's amazing, right? Those of you that work in high trust and have worked in low trust, or vice versa, maybe we worked in high trust before and now we're in a lower trust situation, know that that's what it is. It's trust. And that's what's slowing things down or keeping the speed up, right? And we'll talk about that in just a second as well. High trust leaders have also learned how to interact with others in ways that increase trust levels while avoiding the pitfalls that deplete trust. Now, if we were to think back, those of us that were here last time, think back to the Christopher Moore's Circle of Trust, which you guys can Google. So write this one down, Christopher Moore's Circle of Trust. It divides our different conflicts into categories. Now, within those categories, relationship is one. And when we have poor communication or misunderstanding and we're not righting wrongs, we're depleting trust. And there are so many ways that we deplete trust. One of the ones that's popping to mind right now is follow through. When we fail to follow through or follow up with our team, we are depleting trust. We are dropping the ball. Okay? So we want to avoid that and look for ways on how we're building trust. High trust leaders also recognize that trust, or the ability to trust others, starts with them from the inside out. And I hope you guys can see this picture. Looking good. I'll sail through the self-assessment. And what they see is not exactly what everybody else is getting. Okay? So we say the ability to trust others starts from the inside out. Now, in different situations, most recently I met a fellow who didn't trust anybody. He didn't trust anybody in his management team, his organization. And I looked at him right in the eyes, which I don't always do, by the way. I usually look at their nose or their teeth. I looked at him in the eyes and I said, "You haven't always been this way." And he said, "You're right, I haven't." And my heart broke. He used to trust people. And I wanted to spend like the rest of the day finding everything out why this happened. Because if we as leaders do not have the ability to trust others, we need to do some self-homework. We need to figure out, unpack what's happened and why we feel that we can't trust others. If we can't trust ourselves, and if we are unwilling or unable to trust others, then how can they trust us? Often, I will ask people, are you a trust first, trust earned, or the benefit of the doubt? So I'm asking you that. Are you a trust first person? Do you have to have that trust earned? Oh, I can hear my tone on that one. Or do you give people the benefit of the doubt? I would hope that most of us would be able to say the benefit of the doubt at the very minimum, or that I do trust people first. Now, if we don't, that's okay, but email me. I want to know why. Because I'm going to say right now, when we trust first, it creates ease. Have I been disappointed as a trustworthy person or a trust first person? I hope I'm trustworthy. Sure I have. Have I been robbed? Yes. Have people taken advantage of that kindness, of that trust? Probably. But I don't care, because I will continue to trust first. I recognize that it starts from within, right? We work from the inside out. Anyway, you can tell I could go on forever about that. Stephen M.R. Covey Jr., it's Stephen Jr. guy, he says, nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. Nothing is as profitable as the economics of trust. It's truly the one thing that changes everything. Think about it. Nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. Think about the relationships that you have that are meaningful to you. And sure, they could be in work, but maybe they're not at work. Maybe they're outside of work. And there's a good chance that those relationships that are meaningful to you, you have high trust. Guaranteed. And it's funny how there are certain professions maybe that we trust more than others. I won't go into that because that would be a good 15 minutes wrapped up into that. But think about it. Who do you trust the most? And what's that relationship like? We say nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. It's because it creates ease. Who doesn't want ease, right? So how do you define trust? Think about it. It's one of these words that we throw around a lot, but do we actually know how we define it? When I think of trust, some things come to mind. A feeling I get when I'm around someone, as a deep feeler. Can I trust this person? I also am a people watcher. As much as I love to talk, I love to observe. And I will observe people and just watch their actions, the way that they interact with other people. Body language we know is huge. So how do we define trust? How do we know we can trust someone? The dictionary defines trust as, and I'm sure this is what we were all thinking, assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. And here's where we hit the home run, one in which confidence is placed. That's why we go back to self-trust. Do we have confidence in self? Can we extend that out to others? So trust is one in which confidence is placed. Looking at that character, ability, and strength, right? So let's dig it down a little bit further. We look at two different parts of trust. The feeling part that indicates trust and a performance track record that confirms it. So, for example, you may trust me to walk your dog. Okay, you get a good feeling that I'm good with animals and, I'm going to take care of them. But let's say your dog has a tumor on its side. Do you trust me to hack into it and pull that thing out? No, I don't have a performance track record on that. Just in case you were wondering, I don't. Trust is also the confidence one instills in others based on character and competence. So the character part of me, you will trust me with your dog, but the competence part to perform surgery on your dog, not so much. Okay? So if we look at it, the active feeling of trust is confidence in leadership, veracity, reliability. A passive feeling of trust is the absence of worry or suspicion. So you look at those in those two different parts, active feeling and passive feeling. So maybe we're around someone and we're not so concerned that they're going to, stab us in the back or something like that. That passive, absence of worry or suspicion. Active feeling, leadership. I know, why did I say that? That confidence in their leadership. So consider, do people get an active feeling of trust and a passive feeling of trust around you? So the passive to me is pretty low budget. Okay, hopefully we have that feeling around most people, but there's more to it. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was at, back when we went to stores, I went to people who were doing some printing, and there was a gentleman there who looked a little disheveled. Not that I'm the most, neatly kept person, but I did notice him, and perhaps I was on more high alert because I had my 10-year-old daughter with me. And this gentleman, well, the truth is, guys, I have been to Staples a lot. In fact, in Selkirk, they call me an employee, and they make a joke about it. So I tell them they should give me a plaque for Employee of the Month. And anyway, so I was there with my daughter, and this guy was there, and he looked kind of disheveled, like I said. And I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable. He was getting closer and closer and closer and talking and talking and talking, which, I'm happy to do. But I did have some suspicion, and it was based on a feeling and on his outward appearance, which I'm sorry to say, I try not to judge, but I did. And he also seemed kind of groggy, which gave me another indication that maybe not everything was okay with this fellow. And thankfully, Ella left the area, because I let her roam around the store. That's even more scary than talking to a guy. Anyway, I got talking to him, and I started to feel at ease because it turns out this is a fellow who works nights, so he was very tired. His house had burnt down, and he was living in a motel with 0 things. He was photocopying his insurance papers. And, that passive feeling of worry and suspicion had become active. And then it was depleted the more I got to know them. And I think that's true with our teams. The more we get to know them, we'll either increase that trust or take it away. Trust, then, in simple terms, can be defined as confidence, absence of suspicion, confirmed by track record and our ability to correct, which I successfully did with that man, and I'm so thankful. He was a very nice gentleman. 3 characteristics of trust. Number 1, trust is transactional. In other words, you must give trust to get trust. That's what I'm saying. If we can at least start with, giving people the benefit of the doubt, hopefully we can work up to trusting them first. Number 2, trust is built incrementally over time. Last week, we talked about respect and how we give respect as a baseline level of human decency. We give respect. What may change is my trust with you. I will always give you respect. What may change, though, like I said, is either we're building trust or it's being torn down. Trusting others begins with self. Now, trust is the confidence one instills in others based on character and competence. That character, the feeling part, competence, the performance track record. Now, character, we dig deeper on this one, can be defined as integrity. And that may be a word that came up for you when we said, or when I said, how do you define trust? Integrity. So integrity, we know, is doing what you said you were going to do. Without integrity, you have no foundation on which to place trust. So being honest, telling the truth, and this third one is really cool, leaving the correct impression. Have you ever been with someone when you weren't so sure about them, right? Leaving that correct impression. Have we done that in the workplace? It's really important. We talk about transparency a lot in leadership. That's it, being honest and telling the truth, leaving the correct impression. Intent, the second part, right, is your plan or purpose and can be broken down into these 3 components. Number 1 is the motive. This is our why. So the most trust-inspiring motive is the one that shows genuine care for your employees or customers. I love going into a workplace and seeing this and feeling this. If your motive doesn't have this, then be prepared to pay a trust tax. Agenda. What do you intend to do based on your motive? The agenda that inspires the greatest trust is mutually beneficial. And behavior, okay? This is important too. This is the actual action that results from the motive and agenda. The behavior that inspires the greatest trust is acting in the best interest of others. Now, we talked about the character. What about the competence? Do you have the ability to accomplish the required task? We joke around about faking it till you make it. How about actually having talent, attitude, knowledge, and style and putting them to use in the right way, right? Doesn't mean that we can't add skills, but look at what you're already good at. I'm a big believer of building on our strengths. If you haven't done a SWOT analysis in a while, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, now's the time. And then the results, not just what the results were. This is the important part, guys, but how they were accomplished. So consider the characters that you have, the behaviors that you have that define your character and your competence. And are you living in alignment with your values? So I had mentioned a trust tax. When trust is low in a relationship, company, culture, team, with a customer, speed will go down and costs will go up. Low trust organizations pay a tax. Think about it. If we have low trust, we have low speed and our costs go up. Trust taxes, although not tangible, right, may be disguised as other problems impacting our output. So what would those problems be? What comes to mind for me is micromanaging. But maybe we're micromanaging because, spoiler alert, we don't have the right people in the right positions. So if we're constantly struggling through low trust and low speed, consider that. Am I micromanaging? Do the people have the competencies to be in the job? If the answer is yes, then get out of their way. Let them do their job, and you'll see something amazing happen. When trust increases in a relationship, company, or culture, on a team with a customer, we know that the cost will come down. Everything happens faster and costs the business less. Okay, I love this picture. Significant distrust doubles the cost of doing business and triples the time it takes to get things done. That's what we're saying, right? It slows things down, which costs us more, impacting the bottom line. So the reverse is true. Let's take a look at this. If we have high trust, our speed will go up and our costs will go down. It's a simple thing, right? It looks like a little equation here. Organizations are becoming painfully aware of how expensive a low trust slowdown affects performance and taking steps to become trusted players from the inside out. That is with each and every single member of your organization. The truth is, the only one that we can fix, in quotations here, would be ourselves. So working with ourselves first, character, competence, building trust, cranking up the speed, and lowering our costs. That cost, we might not see it as, if we're building widgets, then yeah, our speed has gone up. We can tell because we're producing twice as many widgets. But for those of us that aren't maybe in manufacturing, those costs are seen in other ways. Okay, so some of the costs that we might see are, back to last week, absenteeism, presenteeism, people showing up but are checked out emotionally. The cost to our business could be apathetic behavior in customer service, right? Gossiping. These are all costs to our organization. Okay, so those workplace problems, like I said, gossip, interpersonal issues, people not hanging out, people not having fun on breaks. These are the types of problems we would see. We'll see an increase of conflict, right? A lack of cohesiveness, people working in a misalignment with intention. All of that will cause huge problems in a low trust environment. Here's the good news. It's kind of a good news and bad news depending on where you're at. Yes. The emotional bank account. So this is something kind of cool. Every time you express your faith in someone else through trusting them to do their job, you are making a deposit in the emotional bank account that you have with that person. So think about other ways we make deposits. These are the good things, right, into that bank account. So we're trusting them to do their job. What about providing feedback? Okay, that's one of our sessions coming up, providing feedback. How do we do that? We think about corrective feedback as well as positive feedback. Both are important. If we're only giving positive feedback, we may be missing out on coaching opportunities and development opportunities. If we're only giving corrective feedback, there's a good chance that we have a low trust situation going on. Your people will trust you more and more and more as we give them feedback. So that's another way. Following up, like I said, allowing people to do their job, having clear communication, being transparent, providing data and info. And if we think about effective communication, we are treating people the way they need to be treated. These are all ways we put deposits into the emotional bank account. And of course, there are many, many ways we make withdrawals. So consider that when you're interacting with someone. Am I making a deposit into the emotional bank account I have with this person, or am I making withdrawals? And just like any regular bank account, we want to make sure that we're putting in more than we're taking out. And there will be times where we will be taking out, or we will have to, or maybe it's as simple as, hey, I need next Friday off, right? There are so many ways that we can add to our bank account and take out. So let's reread this top line. Every time you express your faith in someone else through trusting them to do their job, you are making a deposit. And it goes back to making sure that we have the right people in the right places. The truth is, trust impacts us 24/7, 365 days a year. Look at the news right now. we are trusting that we are getting correct information. That information is changing. And so maybe some of us aren't as trusting of the news or of other people. What about this person in line behind you? Are we worried that they have a disease or something that could impact our families and ourselves? The truth is, trust impacts us 24/7, 365 days a year. And I think we're noticing that more and more, especially in our pandemic that we're all struggling through right now. My hopes and dreams for you today, for you to be able to recognize when you're building trust, and most importantly, when you're not building it and when it's being diminished, so that we can turn that around and create workplaces with high trust and lower costs. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care and remember to wash your hands. Talk to you soon.